As a wise superhero once said, space, it's huge. So huge in fact that if you lost your car keys in it, they would be almost impossible to find. Now that's a hard stance to argue against. Space and the universe is massive, and as fascinating as it all is, it is also terrifying and daunting to think about. To think about what may or may not be out there somewhere in that vast array of stars and planets. You know what video game franchise perfectly encapsulates those feelings of wonder and worry? Ratchet and Clank. Yes, this platforming duo comprised of a Lombax and a robot have ever since their debut in 2002 traveled across planets, worlds, and galaxies, and seen places and spaces only the imagination can put an end to. The franchise is not over yet, with the most recent game in the franchise, the reimagining of the first game, being released in 2016 to coincide with the feature film of the same name. New games have certainly not been ruled out in the future, so hopefully we'll see more of this duo in the coming years. But today I want to go back in time for a bit. Back before our tools of destruction, before we upped our arsenal, even before we went commando. Because sometimes appreciating what came before can teach us a lot about what we have now. Let's focus our attention on the first game in the series, simply titled, well, Ratchet & Clank. For this video, I want to examine one specific level that I think very much defines and showcases what this franchise is capable of in a nearly flawless way. What an introduction to this world this little platformer was. You see, because this game, compared to its sequels, utilizes a retro VHS style, it adds a certain flavor to the experience not really present in other entries of the series to this extent, since the games that followed it leaned more and more into a futuristic, clean vision as opposed to the somewhat grittier and mechanical tone of the first. The first game truly feels like an adventure with real edge to it, not only due to the constant bickering between the two main leads, but also because you never know what you'll find on the next planet, and the further into the franchise we got and the flashier the games became, some of these original feelings and aspects were somewhat lost for better or for worse, but the foundation would almost always be the same. Still, the very first game feels unique in the way it portrays itself, probably because the developers were still finding their footing with this new IP. The first few planets in Ratchet & Clank take place on diverse and varied locations, but planets aren't the only locations you'll find here, no. There are plenty of space stations and spaceships knocking about in these galaxies. The first space station you encounter in the game, the Blarg Tactical Research Station, is a very atmospheric level with big open windows giving you a view of space. This is especially felt while playing as Clank, as you're allowed to really stop and absorb the ambience as this tiny, seemingly insignificant robot explores the cosmos in silence. It's a great first taste of a space station in the franchise, and it would certainly not be the last. The series has had its fair share of space-themed levels, which is to be expected. You're traveling from planet to planet, and sometimes you will of course be able to explore some out-there space stations and environments that bring you very close to space itself. For example, the Obani moons of Ratchet & Clank 3 come to mind with their hypnotic soundtracks, and the freeform exploration in A Crack in Time would also continue this, but I think no level ever came closer to displaying the vastness of space than that of the Gemlik Base in the Altanis orbit from the first game. And this is apparent as soon as you step foot on the station for the first time. Let's talk about this level for a bit, where it comes in the story, what it does well, and how it may make the player feel a certain way. The first thing you'll probably notice straight away is the giant bright star in the background, which is a daunting and terrifying detail. You're so close to it, and so insignificant in comparison. However, there's no time to focus on that, because Ratchet, our protagonist, is here for one reason and one reason only. Bringing down Quark for betraying him by hopefully finding a faster ship at the station. Little does he know that Quark is closer than he might think. The difficulty of the game ramps up here, and if you haven't invested into getting more health on Orxon, another truly atmospheric and even slightly creepy planet with an ominous musical track, you'll have a really tough time here. This is what happened to me the first time I played the game since I was a stupid kid. I had to go back and get my health upgraded because man did this level kick my 4 health nanotech ass. This makes the level quite threatening. You can't mess around here, you have to fight well. The soundtrack for this place needs mentioning, as it really helps this level. It starts off reserved and even slightly uneasy, allowing you to take in the location of where you've ended up. Then, as the beat drops, you are greeted with a truly rocking tune that contributes tenfold to the area, causing you to feel even more immersed. The atmosphere truly makes you feel lonely, limited, and outnumbered. You don't belong here, and you're on your own. The Moonbase arrives at a pivotal point in the game's narrative. Ratchet and Clank have not gotten along very well over the course of the story due to several disagreements stemming from their clashing personalities. Clank being analytical and reserved, and Ratchet being more impulsive and brash. This dynamic would shift much more into a buddy-buddy friendship in the coming games due to some players not appreciating Ratchet's character in the first one, though to me, having the two not immediately get along provided them both with some really interesting character growth over the course of just one game, and it added some friction and realism to them which left the door open to some great character development as the story went along. When Ratchet inevitably recognizes the errors of his ways at the end of this level, it provides us with a really gratifying and cathartic moment as he apologizes to Clank for acting the way he has. For the rest of the game, he attempts to reconcile for his rude behavior, and in the end, it provides us with an incredibly satisfying ending where the two finally come together as a duo to do the right thing. They finally work together as a team, and you feel as though they've really earned it. At last, you see them as true friends. Now, their friendship feels earned. I gotta say, it's better than what the 2016 game did, having Ratchet be a starry-eyed, practically flawless hero who immediately befriends Clank right from the get-go, which wasn't terribly interesting. In the original version of the narrative, this level served as a central and crucial turn in the two protagonists' dynamic. In the new version, Gemlik Base didn't even make an appearance, which was disappointing, since the level undoubtedly left an impression on many of those who played it. Now, to get back to why it works so well, let's briefly delve into some of its bigger and smaller details that add to the feeling of it. There is imminent danger in nearly every direction you look. If you fall off the edge, you're lost in space forever. There's just something so unsettling and uncomfortable about not having any solid ground beneath your feet, isn't there? It's the same way when you can't see the bottom of the ocean. It would be a gruesome fate, to say the least. The place is also crawling with tough enemies that won't hesitate to stop you. By having to look around and destroy towers around the station to power down force fields for you to proceed, you pay extra attention to your surroundings, and dodging these turret enemies tests your agility and quick thinking. The station tests many of your abilities, such as using the trespasser and thinking outside of the box. You also go inside the base, which showcases some of its inner workings. Due to the area being a handcrafted space station and a fortress at that, it is filled with metal, dangerous explosive canisters, and green acid. And the station is full of colors like grays, blacks, and greens. This causes the area to feel industrial and artificial, which goes well with the themes the game tackles, such as consumerism, greed, and, well, industrialism. It is an unnatural area to be in. The star that is ever-presently looming over you stands out among the more distant stars and the dark void of space, and gives the station some illumination and light. Several asteroids and even faraway planets can also be spotted all around you, which further clues you in on how massive this galaxy really is and how tiny you are. You're constantly reminded of it every time you find yourself outside of the station. Finally, at the end of the level, after fighting your way through, you run into and battle Quark in a tense dogfight, as you circle around the station, which is a nice and climactic way of rounding off the experience. You take him down, and Quark crash lands on the planet below, Altanis, a planet now utterly on the brink of disaster due to Chairman Drek's evil interference. After witnessing the damage Drek is causing to the planet, Ratchet finally comes to his senses and realizes where his priorities must lie from now on. Focusing solely on Quark was a mistake, and now he sees that clear as day. Now, Ratchet and Clank can finally start working together to save the galaxy. Now, Gemlik Base is not the most iconic level in the game. That, I would say, goes to Metropolis, but it is certainly a memorable one that sticks in your head long after finishing the game, since it is quite unique. The only level that comes close to being similar to it in the game is the Blarg research station, which I mentioned previously, and perhaps Drek's fleet as well, it can be argued. The Moonbase is one of, if not the most atmospheric level you'll find here, and in my opinion, it is practically flawless. There are no distractions here, no details that detract from the mission or the immersion, and it allows you to become completely engrossed in the locale as you reflect on your place in the galaxy. For the time, you could not have done better than this in terms of creating such a captivating level set in outer space. But every level in Ratchet & Clank stands out for different reasons. On one planet you can find yourself in a bustling high-tech city, and on another you're on a nice bright getaway resort. There's something here for everyone. This is why having it be a galaxy trekking adventure was such a stroke of genius, and this level is no exception, and produces one of the strongest experiences of the entire game. It utilizes perspective, phenomenal music, and perilous situations to craft something brilliant, but also slightly intimidating. Space is fascinating. It is also terrifying. And Gemlik Base, through its strengths, perfectly captures this to produce a perfect level. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed me rambling on a bit about a very special level from a very special game. If you enjoyed the video, I would love it if you could give it a like and comment your thoughts down below. Which Ratchet & Clank game do you think is the best? If you like this video and want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe. You can also check out my social medias for updates, or check out my Patreon page if you're feeling generous. Or why not my merch store? Again, thank you for watching. Stay awesome everyone, and maybe look up at the stars tonight, huh? I wonder what's out there in that big universe. Goodbye.